Good evening and welcome to the Township of Woolwich Council meeting on February 21st, 2023. We are now live on YouTube. I'll start with a roll call of council. I, Mayor Shantz, am present and chairing this meeting. Councillor Bryant.
Present.
Councillor Burgess.
Present.
Councillor Cadeau.
Present.
Councillor Grant.
Present.
And Councillor Schwint.
Present.
Thank you. Can I have a motion that council reconvenes in open session, please? Moved by Councillor Cadeau, seconded by Councillor Burgess. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. I want to start by acknowledging the land on which we live has been here from time immemorial, and that Indigenous people have lived here from time immemorial. I thank the Chinantan, also called the Attawandaron, the Anishinaabe, and the Haudenosaunee people who have lived here and cared for this land and who continue to share and steward this land with us. May we together learn to care for each other, our flora and fauna, and the land that sustains us. Yesterday, I had the privilege of dropping the puck for the Kings game as the Township of Woolwich was a sponsor. And my little grandson played at intermission, and it was really fun and adorable to watch the little guys and girls play. But after the game and the shuffle of people, my grandson and another little girl disappeared. And it's moments like that when I'm very aware that it takes a village to raise a child. And I'm very glad to live in Woolwich, where people know each other and lend a hand. He was found, and they were both found fairly quick. They weren't together, they were separated, but were returned to their families and all as well. On the weekend, though, we lost a 10-year-old member of our community, a son and a grandson of people with deep connections in the community, a little lad who has friends in the community. So I want to take a moment to remember Zachary Petley, his family, his extended family, and friends. It also takes a village to mourn a child. Let's take a moment. Thank you. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? No, seeing none. We have some items to come forward from closed session. First of all, I'll call on Deputy Clerk Smith to bring these forward.
Thank you, Mayor Shantz. Through you to council. This evening, we have 5 reports that went to closed session to recommend members of the community to our boards and committees of council. The first is the Committee of Adjustment. The second is the Property Standards Appeal Committee. The third is the Technical Advisory Group. The fourth is the Township of Woolwich Environmental Enhancement Committee. And the fifth is the Woolwich Heritage Committee. If there are any questions from council, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any questions? No, seeing none, can I have a mover and a seconder that we appoint the following beginning in April 2023 until the expiration of the term of council that appointed them, or until successors are appointed, as long as they continue to be qualified members of the committee. And that would be Linda Dixon, Christine Fletcher, Stephen Hartman, Jeremy Karn, and Charles Zeidler. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Grant, seconded by Councillor Burgess. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. The Property Standards Appeal Committee. Did you have anything to add, Ms. Smith?
Thank you, Mayor Shantz. Through you to council. For the Property Standards Appeal Committee, along with the appointments to the committee, staff are recommending that the terms of reference be updated to allow for a $70 honorarium, a $75 honorarium instead of the $75 honorarium. I will also note at this point that there are two other committees whose terms of references are recommended to be, one other committee terms of reference to be amended in the same way, and that was the Committee of Adjustment, which was just passed by council. And with that, if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
So my apologies for missing that in the motion. Do we need to do a separate motion on that? No. Okay, thank you. Any questions on the Property Committee? Councillor Cadeau.
Just for clarity, we're going from a $70 honorarium to a $75 honorarium with several of these committees. Can you provide some justifications for that?
Thank you, Councillor Cadeau. Through you, Mayor Shantz. Yes, so when we were doing the recruitment, we also reviewed all of the terms of reference for each committee. We just noted, staff noted that the honorariums for 3 committees hadn't been updated in a number of years. And we wanted to recognize the work that these committee members are doing for council and for the committee, for the community. And lastly, staff also recognized that the cost of living has drastically changed over the last number of years. And with that, those would be our 3 justifications for changing from $70 to $75.
Anything else? Can I have a mover and a seconder for the committee? And the appointees are Catherine Bose, Tim Metzger, Lisa Nadon, Lynn Phippen, and Charles Zeidler. Councillor Bryant, seconded by Councillor Burgess. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Technical Advisory Group.
Thank you, Mayor Shantz, through you to council. So for this committee, this group of council, there's not many noteworthy changes to make. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Are there any questions? No? Okay, then motion that, and then we've made a bit of a change to this. We do need to review the terms of reference of this advisory group as we move into this term of council with the so looking at I guess the control order that goes until 2028, and knowing that we need to deal with some changes to that. So the motion would be that the council appoints following technical advisory group until March 2024 to allow a review of the terms of reference of the committee. So that would be until successors are appointed, as long as they continue to be qualified members of the committee. And that would be David Hoffbauer, Wilson Lau, Brian Broomfield, Susan Bryant, Linda Dixon, Ryan Prosser, Sebastian Seidel-Achenbach, and reappoints Tiffany Svensson of Blumetric Environmental Inc. as the chairperson for the technical advisory group. I have a mover and a seconder for that. Moved by Councillor Nadeau, seconded by Councillor Grant. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Township of Woolwich Environmental and Enhancement Committee.
Thank you, Mayor Shantz, through you to council. This group, we are happy to say, and with many of our groups and committees, I should say that not just this group, but we have a full complement for this committee. This committee, the applicants were reviewed by Woolwich Healthy Communities Coordinating Committee, WHCCC. There's a lot of C's there. That committee has endorsed all of the applicants as well. So if council has any questions with that, I'd be happy to answer them.
Councillor Grant.
I apologize, Ms. Shantz. I probably should have declared a pecuniary interest. I did so in the closed session, but I have a personal friend that is one of the recommended appointees.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I was just thinking that as we started on this. Are there any questions then? Okay, then a motion that we appoint Tricia Brubaker, Susan Bryant, Deborah Cole, Janet Cox, Connor Ehrlich, Allison Gramlow, Dennis Martin, Adrian Miltenberg, Chris Moore, Inga Rinnie, and Jenny Sainer to that committee. Mover, seconder, Councillor Schwint, seconded by Councillor Cadeau. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And the Heritage Committee.
Thank you, Mayor Shantz. Our last committee for the evening, the Woolwich Heritage Committee. Again, I'm happy to report that staff are recommending a full complement for this committee and many returning members. So if council has any questions for this report, I would be happy to answer them.
Are there any questions? No, seeing none, then we would move to appoint Catherine Booth, Karen Cummings, Mark Drexler, Allison Gramlow, Kim Hodgson, Hans Potcamper, and Colleen Willard Holt. Mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Burgess, seconded by Councillor Bryant. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. We have minutes from January 30th, 2023. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Schwint, seconded by Councillor Grant. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We have no public meetings, but we do have a presentation tonight, and I'm happy to welcome Mary Jane Patterson, Executive Director, and Patrick Gilbride, Associate Director and Manager of Green Infrastructure Programs from Reep Green Solutions for their annual impact report. Welcome, Mary Jane and Patrick.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor Shantz and councillors. We're very happy to be back in person to share with you our most recent impact report. At Reep, we recognize the pressing challenge of climate change poses in the coming years. We know that we need the community as a whole to take action. So we've set a milestone which we hope represents a much larger transformation in the community. That is, by 2030, people impacted by Reep Green Solutions will have taken 10,000 meaningful actions to collectively shift our community to a resilient, low carbon future. Next slide, please. I'm happy to report that we're almost a third of the way there. These actions represent tangible steps that people have taken on their own sustainability journeys. In the remaining slides, we'll outline some of those meaningful actions. Next slide. Home energy evaluations are a great example of this. As you can see, 465 homeowners had a home energy evaluation taking advantage of the new Greener Homes initiative from the federal government. 140 of those have already completed upgrades based on our recommendations and received incentives to help cover the cost of their retrofits. These are meaningful actions that represent real greenhouse gas reductions. We're very pleased to report a significant growth in energy evaluations in Woolwich. Over the past year, 24 homes have had energy evaluations, up from 6 the previous year. 10 homes have gone the step further and completed energy efficiency upgrades based on our recommendations, which represents a 5 times growth over the previous period. This surge in participation is probably due to the federal Greener Homes program that I mentioned, which provided incentives for all homes, not just natural gas heated homes. Next slide, please. We want to continue to encourage home energy retrofits. So last year, we told council that we were working to provide full wraparound services for home energy evaluations. This year, we concluded the design of what that would look like, including loans for home energy upgrades, This is action 3.1.9 of Transform WR, which Mary Jane will talk about in her portion of the presentation. And an important outcome of this process is the report that you see on the right-hand side of the slide, which shows about equity in home energy loan programs. This is something that we've shared with other communities throughout Canada and has garnered a lot of interest because we're the first to specifically look at equity in these financing programs. Next slide. Our Healthy Yards and Neighborhoods programs are an important resource to adapt to climate change. We have developed a suite of online tools that show people how to naturalize their yards and to manage rain where it falls, which we know are the building blocks to a more climate resilient neighborhoods. And in select cities, we have full service offerings, which include backyard tree planting, rain garden programs, and our Bloom and Box and fall shrub fundraisers, which are offered throughout the region, which provide harder to find native plants that thrive in our climate. I'll now turn it over to Mary Jane to talk about some of our other programs.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I'm going to say a little bit about our, Alex, next slide, please. Our community engagement, because much of this is not directly funded, but it's still very important as kind of entry points for people getting involved in environmental action and beginning their sustainability journey. And I'm thinking of things like our Zero Waste Challenge, which you've participated in, Mayor Shantz, our youth cutting carbon work with students, and some of our webinars and workshops. And we're very grateful to core funders that help us offer these important resources. The workshops, just a little commentary on the impact of COVID on this. They moved online during the pandemic. And what we found is that there were many more people that were able to come, and it was more accessible to people that might not have been able to come out in person. And the ones that were the most popular were about gardening, tree canopy, and tree stewardship, rain gardens, healthy yards, those kinds of topics. These seem to really strike a chord with people during COVID. So as we move out of the pandemic, we're finding that people are still not all wanting to come out in person. So we're going to go forward with a mixture of in-person and virtual events for these kinds of programs. Next slide, please. As you know, I think Reep Green Solutions co-leads Climate Action WR along with Sustainable Waterloo Region. And our long-term climate action strategy, Transform WR, was endorsed by all the councils in 2021. It is now our guiding light, and we wanted you all to have it at your fingertips. So I'm hoping you've received your hard copy. Have you received your hard copy yet? Is this ringing the bell with any? It looks like this. It should be coming if you haven't got it already. We wanted every councillor in the region to have their own copy. I look at it probably every day, looking something up. Our sector committees, you can see them all on the screen, did very good work this past year. One of their focus areas was equity in the cycling networks in our cities. And another was demystifying heat pumps for building owners, both residential and commercial. And now we're working towards our first inventory report in 5 years for the year 2020. So that should be coming out soon. Next slide. Here you see a breakdown of our expenses by program area, and that gives you a sense of the diversity of programs that we have and the different ways in the door for people who want to take action in their own lives. And you can see that we work almost equally in climate change mitigation, helping people reduce their emissions, and climate change adaptation, helping people adapt to the changing climate that we're in through things like stormwater management and tree stewardship. And next slide. And here's how our revenue breaks down. And here there's something that we look at every year. How are we doing in balancing grants with fee-for-service work and contract work that really help us have a diversity of sources of revenue and therefore weather the ups and downs of funding programs. Next slide, please. So looking ahead, there's a couple projects we wanted to share with you that are not even projects yet for one of them, but things on our horizon. One of them we're really happy to talk about, the 2 billion trees funding that we received for a tree nursery in Waterloo Region that would support a number of the organizations that do tree planting and tree stewardship, including Township of Woolwich, Woolwich, hang on. Woolwich Trees for Woolwich. Thank you. I got it mixed up with Tweak. So there's several different groups that have come together for this, and it's really nice to be working together on tree stewardship in the region. So we'll have more on that next year when we come, because Patrick is just setting that up. We wanted to let you know that we're also looking into energy poverty and how that affects affordable housing. And this grows out of that equity work that Patrick was talking about when we were doing energy efficiency financing programs, and asking ourselves, if it's not appropriate for a home to have a loan, if it's not affordable for them, then what can we do about that? So we don't know the answer yet, but if you want to learn a little bit more, we have a blog on our website about this, about energy poverty in Waterloo Region. And last slide, please. So finally, we want to just say that we have 4 core funders that make all of the rest of this possible and help us stay on an even keel as other levels of government come and go. Mayor Shantz, you are part of Regional Council, and the region is a core funder of Reep, and we want to thank you very much for that support. It makes a big difference for keeping these programs going. And we also want to say thank you to all of you here at Woolwich Township for your support and for your partnership. And a special shout out to Ann Roberts, who we get to work with on several different programs and whose participation we really appreciate. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you for the work that you do, and for your tenacity. I know it must feel like a slow slog sometimes, getting people on board, and the success that you've had and the progress that you've made has been worthwhile and will continue to be worthwhile. Are there any questions or comments from council? No. Okay. Thank you very much for the update, and we'll look for those books
Yes,
shortly.
they should be coming. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Okay.
Good night.
Thank you. Okay, we have, sorry, we just have one delegation, I guess, online. Okay. Before we hear from you this evening, I need to read the following instructions. You have a maximum of 7 minutes to speak. There will be a timer on the screen, and you will hear a warning when you have 1 minute or when your time is up. Once you're finished, please wait for questions of clarification from council. When there are no more questions for you, please turn off your microphone and video. You're welcome to stay for the rest of the discussion and or meeting if you'd like to. And you're also welcome to leave quietly whenever you wish. Council discussion and debate will start when all questions of clarification have finished. So tonight our delegation is Graham Spence, Treasurer of the St. Jacobs BIA. Welcome, Mr. Spence.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
There you are.
I'm not sure, but yeah.
Yeah, your voice is
I think Thomas actually from the.
Your voice is a bit pixelated in your picture. Maybe you should turn your video off and we'll just listen.
Okay.
Thanks. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I think actually, I mean, Thomas, I think he's on the meeting as well from the township, is probably better to speak on some of this here. Not sure if Thomas wants to step in and.
Mr. Vanderhoff?
I can
Thomas,
provide
go
some
ahead.
context for sure. Through you, Mayor Shantz, to council. So the St. Jacobs BIA applied for tourism relief funding from the federal government, would have been a couple of months ago now. The intent was to install a modular outdoor rink behind the St. Jacobs Fire Station, as well as purchase a shed just to house the rink and barricade seating, that sort of thing, through the summer months. The BIA was successful with receiving funds. However, the project deadline has a completion. It needs to be completed by the end of March, and invoicing needs to be in by March 15th. So the timeline is extremely tight. Part of the reason why we had asked the BIA to come before council this evening to seek formal approval, and then also to request that the agreement not be with the BIA as was originally planned, but to be with the township, just based on some wording that's in the agreement. Funds for the project, the township would incur funds and then would be reimbursed from the St. Jacobs BIA following. So in short, like I said, an outdoor ice rink similar to what we have throughout the township at some other locations as well too, that would be run by volunteers in the winter, probably wouldn't be put in place for this winter. And then a prefab shed that we would purchase in place in the corner of the parking lot as well too, along with some seating, water service, floodlights on the back of the building, and some barricades as well too around the rink, just to delineate that from the parking lot. And then through the summer months, it would transform just back to regular parking. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have on behalf of the BIA. And I know Graham's here as well too, but I'm sure between the two of us, we can answer any questions for council.
Okay. Council, what questions do you have? Councillor Cadeau and then Bryant.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Director Vanderhoff. If we were to pursue this and complete 3/4 of the project and then not complete that last quarter before that deadline, are we going to not receive that last quarter of funding? Would we be ineligible for the entire? Can you kind of speak to do you know where I'm going with that? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, for sure. Through you, Mayor Shantz, to Councillor Cadeau. So based on timing, we don't anticipate that we're going to be able to carry out the scope as we had originally planned. We had originally planned to pour a slab, do a proper garage, purchase similar style rink. But in chatting with the BIA and just based on timing, we've tried to scope the project in a way that we can get everything done by the end of March. By, again, a shed that's already constructed. The rink, we're fairly confident we can get that within a tight time frame as well too. So we anticipate probably spending around 60,000 of the 107,000 that's been allocated, and that's purely just as a result of timing constraints.
Councillor Bryant.
Thank you. Through you to Thomas. Are we guaranteed these funds, or are we just assuming we're going to get them? Like, are there guarantees this money's going to come in? Because I don't want to see us spend money and then find we're not going to get it returned.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Shantz, to Councillor Bryant. Yes, the funds would be guaranteed.
Okay, thank you. Are there other questions? No. Okay. Thank you, Thomas and Graham. There's a motion here that the Township of Woolwich approves a contribution agreement and incurs the project expenses up front to be reimbursed from the TRF grant, and that the mayor and clerk sign the contribution agreement. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Schwinn, seconded by Councillor Cadeau. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. We don't have any unfinished business. We do have a consent agenda. And there are a number of pieces to it. I'll ask if council wants to wish any items to wish. Does anyone on council wish to remove any items for further discussion? Councillor Bryant.
Yes. Can I have number 5, the budget approval?
Yes.
Pulled out, please.
Yes. What about the other 4? Is everyone okay with leaving those and voting on those? Can I have a mover and a seconder then for numbers 1 through 4? Moved by Councillor Cadeau, seconded by Councillor Grant. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, number 5, budget approval. So the council approves the budget. There are 5 parts to that budget approval. Do you want to approve the ones that we can agree on and work away at the other one at the end? Yeah, just number 5. So the I think you might mean number 1. I think it's number 1. I'm just guessing, but okay. So number 2 is the water budget. Number 3 is the wastewater budget. Number 4 is the water and wastewater fees and charges bylaw. And number 5 is the corporate business plan. Does anyone want to pull those, or do you want to go ahead with all of those? I'm seeing some intense faces. You want to do them one by one? Yeah, okay, but we're going to start with number 2 and go to number 5, and then we'll go back to number 1. Okay, so to approve the 2023 water budget with a net expenditure of $4,574,065 as summarized in attachment 3. And I have a mover and a seconder for that. Moved by Councillor Grant, seconded by Councillor Cadeau. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Approve the 2023 wastewater budget with a net expenditure of $4,668,626 as summarized in attachment 4. Moved by Councillor Cadeau, seconded by Councillor Grant. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Approve the water and wastewater fees and charges bylaws attached as attachment 5 and 6 respectively. Moved by Councillor Cadeau, seconded by Councillor Burgess. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And approve the Township of Woolwich's 2023 corporate business plan as presented during budget deliberations. Moved by Councillor Cadeau, seconded by Councillor Grant. All those in favor? And that's carried. And that brings us back to number 1, which is the 2023 operating and capital budgets summarized in attachment 1 and further, amended for a total net levy of $14,392,443. And I would ask council, do we want to put that on the floor and make amendments to it? Councillor Bryant?
I would say yes, but
So do you want to move it?
I will move it that we make amendments. Yeah.
Okay, a seconder, Councillor Cadeau. And so discussion. I won't call the question just yet. Councillor Bryant.
I would like to put the fire training officer part of the budget back on the floor to see if anyone is willing to pull that piece. I know my opposition was clear at the last meeting on that one, so I'm going to put it back out there again.
Councillor Cadeau.
Through you, Chair, perhaps to Chief Aldis, who is here. I know that we've gone over this on a number of occasions. We've circled back around. I'm wondering though, when I was thinking about this on my Saturday evening, because I had obviously nothing better to do, are we leveraging learning management systems of any nature? Like, are we leveraging scheduling software or any of those that might make the scheduling of some of this training a little bit more user friendly for, you know, the women and men that are going to be undergoing the training? Because a lot of what this position, from my recollection, was going to be doing was around the scheduling of the training, not necessarily delivery of the training, if I'm not mistaken. So can you speak to that?
So through Madam Mayor to Councillor Cadeau. We do leverage different pieces of software. Through the pandemic, we've had to kind of shift the way we do business. So we do, there's a software company that we use called Target Solutions, which helps us look after the training that we need and make sure we have the proper resources in order to do it electronically. So there is a certain component that's done electronically that wasn't done before. It was more all done in person. We have a couple of other ones that were similar to that we use. That's just resource one is a library, so we're not buying as many books, so they can go online and look and read and get ahead on things. The software package that we have for keeping track of everyone's training and everything like that. So we do have some like that, but all that takes someone to be able to manage all that and make sure that everything's getting put out properly to everybody and making sure they're covering what they're doing. The person will be doing delivery of content, more on like the career development and carrying on with enhancing what we need in order to service our clients, the community better. He will be helping deliver all that type of thing, and just administrating and making sure that all our fire halls are training to where they need to be.
Thanks for that. And as a follow-up, you know, in these council chambers, we had a lot of discussion about the potential confluence of other municipalities and how we could potentially slot this training officer in to deliver some of those services. You know, I took a step back and I wondered, why don't we look at it in the other direction? Why don't we go to the region of Waterloo or the city of Kitchener or Cambridge to see how they're delivering their training? And forgive me if you've already done this. I'm sure that you've looked into some of these, but could we not engage with them and see if we can beg, borrow, or steal some of their LMS type software, or just to find some efficiencies is what I'm looking for.
Through Madam Mayor to Councillor Cadeau, we've been doing that all throughout, trying to figure out the best way in order to get what we need. We're part of, and council endorsed, a joint training cooperative basically with all the other 4 townships. So we get together and we're coordinating our training and making sure that we're delivering, instead of every department trying to deliver the same thing. Like our auto X skills, our rope rescue, our swift water, in order, instead of having classes, smaller classes, we're having larger classes, trying to make it more cost effective for everybody. So we are trying to do those types of things already, and this would just enhance our opportunity to make that happen a little nicer.
One more question, if I may. Just remind me, because it's been a while since I think that we first had the conversation around some of the other staff in the department, namely that admin support. It's a full position that you have currently, but you're only using 50% of it, and 50% is being loaned out to another department. Is that how it's currently, or are you getting some sort of cost recovery back from the other? Sorry if I'm not very clear with how I'm asking this. I think that you get where I'm the essence.
Through Madam Mayor to Councillor Cadeau, I understand where you're going. Director Vanderhoff could help a little bit in this if I'm off on a little bit of this. So we currently have a contract position that's shared between fire and recreation and community services. A percentage of her or that person's wage is paid by fire, and a certain is paid through recreation community services. So I believe it's 21 hours a week. She does work for us, and 14 hours a week they do work for Recreation Community Services. So it's a shared position that way. So I don't know if it's, and Richard may be able to help. I don't know if it's how that works as a full-time position or not. That's.
So and from the fire point of view, it's a part-time position. And from the rec point of view, it's a part-time position, but it's one full-time person.
Well, it's a contract position, but it's one person looks after
Doing
both.
half and half,
Yeah.
but from a budgeting point of view, it's
Split between the two.
Richard.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. So this, from my understanding of the contract, it's a 30-hour. So a full-time admin person is a 35-hour per week. So this is a 30-hour contract. And it is split between the fire department and RCS, and it is budgeted accordingly. So fires is contained within fire, and RCS is contained within their budget. So that's probably the best way to describe it. No, it's still more on the fire side than it is on the RCS side.
Other questions, Councillor Kiddo?
Some more comment, and then just general dialogue with council, I suppose. And as I'm leading up to it, I forgot what I was going to say. I should just get to the point from here on out. I know that, legislatively, there are a lot of changes coming that we are going to have to navigate. I think that the discussion last week made me realize that, not everybody agrees that an 8-point, whatever we're at now, is the best course of action. So if we can look for areas to defer, what could we look at? Unfortunately, this one is the only thing that, in grasping at straws, I thought could actually be up for discussion, and I would actually get behind maybe deferring for 1 year. So I'm interested to see where other councillors are at. I know that we were a little bit split on this one. So if there's any other comments before we motion this, I suppose.
If I could just ask, just for clarity, if we're looking at this, what this effect on the budget would be in terms of a percentage?
Even to add a little further clarity, so we're dealing with about a $78,000 impact to the levy budget, and that would equate to, I believe, is a 0.61% reduction. So right now we're sitting at an 8.64, and removing this position would bring it down to 8.03.
Thank you. Further discussion, Councillor Schwint.
Following up on Councillor Kiddo's comments, I think a deferral in this case will allow staff to do some more homework throughout the year and come up with a stronger, more thought out plan that utilizes other townships' resources, and hopefully can get some synergy. We know the work's there, but we know the work is in every department. So in a year where things are tight and we know next year's not better, but I think every plan we approve going forward, we've got to make sure it's well thought out and we're as over prepared as we can be before we add resources. So I'd like to spend more time planning before we add the person in this case. So I'd support deferral for 1 year.
Further discussion. Sorry, Kayla. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. I will admit this has been one of the positions that I've grappled with. I've gone back and forth on supporting and deferring. I think Councillor Schwint is right in this year where we're all kind of tightening our belt, that this is one position that I would also be in favor of deferring for a year and doing some additional research and study into how we can maybe best optimize our training. I would strongly encourage council over the next year to maybe assist in whatever way we can to find collaborative partnerships to help the fire department, whether it's just reaching out to other counselors in other townships to see if there's anything that they can think of as well, because I am very cognizant of the fact that training is something that is very important for our firefighters, and they need to be able to do the job that we're asking them to do.
Anyone else? Okay, the motion on the floor is the motion that's printed. There hasn't been an amendment moved to this point, correct?
Through you, Mayor Shantz, that's correct. I think Councillor Bryant brought out the idea of removing the fire training officer. I don't think we've had a mover and a seconder of a motion yet, but if she wants to move that, I would suggest you put that on the floor.
Councillor Bryant,
I will make that motion. Excuse me.
seconded by Councillor Grant. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Schwint.
Is the motion a clean one that we're deferring for years and also asking for reports back throughout the year on what a plan next year could look like?
Yeah, we can make that amendment, whatever Eric just said, add it to the motion. Yeah.
Clerk Smith, are you making some words there for us? You want to read them back?
Thank you, Mayor Shantz. For you, I have moved by Councillor Bryant, seconded by Councillor Grant, that Council remove the fire training officer from the budget and report back in the year on ways to collaborate with other townships.
Yes. Okay, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Anything else?
I was going to ask to have the planning position deferred as well for a year, but I'm going to open that up to the floor as well.
Okay, Councillor Schwint.
I want to open that one up even further if I can. Through conversation this week, trying to understand the budget better. I understand last year's council approved the hiring of another building official starting in the fourth quarter of this year. That's correct. So I guess two questions I have there is, since we're in the midst of, I guess, looking for a new chief building official, would it make sense to get that process finalized and that person well situated before we started the hiring process in that department again, and perhaps then deferring that until at least first quarter of 24? And if we investigated that, Mr. Petherick, what would the effect be on the levy? I don't think very much, but I'm gonna hope.
So through Madam Mayor, so the building department is self-funded, so they're funded by development fees. What happens is kind of actually the reverse happens. So if you reduce expenditures, there is a 35% indirect cost. So 35% actually gets added on into their direct cost. So it actually has that opposite effect, believe it or not.
Nothing's easy.
I'm hoping we just don't incur those indirect costs either. So in theory, it should net out to zero.
Yeah, through Madam Mayor, it is a direct mathematical calculation. So basically, whatever the end expenditure for the building department, we so basically it's like we look at that total expenditure, add on 35%, and then we look at the fees they've collected, and if they're short on the fees, we draw from the reserve fund. If we're over on the fees, we actually put into the reserve fund.
Okay.
I guess follow up. Either way, it's adding money or overhead to the township, which fund pays for it, I guess, to me is secondary. I guess I'm not comfortable adding on that extra expense in the fourth quarter when we're in the midst of hiring right now, and would like to give that chief building official a bit more time. And also, as I've said before, I'm a little bit nervous about the economy this year, and there may be less building inspections to be doing later on in the year. So that'd be in combination with the planner. I think those are two areas I'd think about.
Ms. Priest?
Okay, so starting with the building position, we would not be hiring that position if we find that building permits will be going down. So we are in the process right now of replacing the chief building official, and that position would be in place before we look at hiring for that other vacant position. But if building permits drop down, we would not hire it. We would delay it to 2024. With respect to the planning position, I know I've tried to make this case a few times, but we do find that it is a really necessary position. Number one reason, because of the provincial downloading of responsibilities, and also the provincial regulations, which put stricter timelines in place and refunds. So that will also be something that will cause additional work and faster work that's required from the planning department. Also, as I think we've mentioned before, that we are the fastest growing municipality in the region. We're expected to grow by 44% by 2051, and we've seen a lot of growth already and continued growth. We've got some major projects going on, including the additional lands that were added through the rock review, and potentially that could even add more lands depending on what the province decides to do and whether or not they approve those additional lands that were added through the ROP. So we need planners to plan for those areas and also to process those development applications so we can develop those areas. And again, within those timelines and added responsibilities that the province is giving us. And then also, I understand that it was mentioned before at the previous meeting, but we have not had any full-time staff increases in 35 years to the planning department. The division. So we are very, very much in need of additional planners, and we do not think that with the current staff complement that we have, we'll be able to meet these new provincial requirements.
Thank you. Anything else on that? Councillor Cadeau.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to council. You know, we are hearing about a lot of the obstacles that are being presented to us at the provincial level. When I'm seeing this position, I'm seeing more of the opportunities that we're seeing at the provincial level. You know, we hear the provincial government saying that they have a very aggressive plan as far as building in the province of Ontario. That coupled with Woolwich and the growth that was just had mentioned, it really creates a recipe for success here in Woolwich. And I think that we should staff up in this department so that we can hit the ground running and we can take advantage of the opportunities that the province really is throwing our way. So I don't have much of an appetite to rehash this conversation. That's just where I stand.
Thank you, Councillor Grant.
Thank you, through you, Mayor, to the rest of council. I would agree with Councillor Cadeau, particularly with this position. Simply, I think Dan laid out a really good case for the timelines and that we're already not meeting the timelines under the old provincial rules. So like Councillor Cadeau, I don't have much appetite for scrapping this one from the budget, unfortunately.
Mr. Brenneman.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to council, just to emphasize a couple of points further to Director Freese's comments. Two key points. One is that certainly one of the things the Township of Woolwich has long been known for is that we've had planning staff and through council support a program of very managed, phased, staged growth. And as much as we've been one of the fastest growing, quite frankly, if we would have had the approach of, say, like a town of Milton, et cetera, we would have built even faster because of the interest in our particular part of the region. So one thing I learned a long time ago is that a council, the staff, and the community want to be in charge of how you shape and stage and manage growth. In order to do that effectively, you need sufficient support and resources to be able to do that. And that just is a nice segue into the fact that if there was one position that was the most important one with all of senior management throughout the budget process, it was the need for this particular position. For the reasons that Director Fries has articulated and my comments about maintaining a managed staged growth.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on this? Councillor Schwint.
So, through you, Mayor Schatz, to Director Fries, quick question on that building inspector. You mentioned that depending on what happens the next year, the decision we made about hiring that fourth person, will that come before council for that final decision? Is that something staff would make?
Through you, Mayor Shantz, yeah, that is a decision that the chief building official will make depending on the number of applications that we're receiving.
So I guess my comments on this one, I'm as frustrated as I am through the process. I do understand the rationale, and my frustration is probably more so with the process at the provincial level and not defining what the effects of the two bills are going to be. And that leaves us making decisions now to prepare for the unknown, which frustrates me to no end. But unfortunately, we probably do have to invest the money now in that. So I'm M1 over on that side of it. However, the caveat is I'm not sure I'd be prepared to let that fourth building official just be at the decision of the chief building official. I'd like to see that come before council before an additional hire was made in 2023.
I think, go ahead, Ms. Fries. Yeah.
Through you, Mayor Sean. So that position was approved through the previous council, so it's already part of our complement, and that's why it would be the decision of the chief building official whether or not or when to hire for that position.
So it's already been approved by council, is what you're saying?
Yeah, through the previous council.
But if I understood what you said before as well, you will look at the number of applications coming in before you actually physically make that hire.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on that piece? Is there anything else? Is there anything else on the budget? Councillor Burgess.
Through you, Mayor Shantz, to council. Just a quick thought, depending on the appetite, if we vote in favor or not of this position, is do you want to delay this one a little bit, 2 or 3 months or something, just to get it below the 8%?
This one doesn't change the levy.
Okay, that answers that.
Planning does. Okay, sorry, my mistake.
Yep.
Mr. Patrick, are you doing some kind of magic math there for us to if 8% is a
yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, I think that depends on the will of council. I can make those quick calculations if council so chooses. How's that?
Please make the calculation.
Are we talking about, I think right now we have it in that it was going to start March 1st. Are we talking then that'd be May 1st? So another 2 months. So it'd be like you're budgeting for 8 months of the year.
Sure.
Assuming I got that right. Let's see.
It just prolongs. It makes our start next year worse.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, you're looking at about almost 18,500 reduction.
And what does that put the percentage at?
It's no problem. With that, you would be at 7.89%.
Thank you. There's nothing on the floor for this. Did you put your hand up? No. Okay. Councillor Bryant.
I'll put a motion on the floor that we just defer the position for 1 year. Just make it simple.
For a year. Councillor Grant.
Sorry, I'm trying to lower my hand. Wasn't working. I was going to put a motion through for the delayed start to May. I wouldn't want to delay this for longer than a year.
Okay, Councillor Bryant just made a motion, so if there's a seconder for Councillor Bryant's motion, we'll deal with that one. I'm not seeing one. Councillor Burgess, are you seconding her motion to delay it for a year?
Sorry, are we voting on Bonnie? Which one?
So Bonnie made a motion that we defer the position for a year. And so you're seconding that? Okay, we'll get to yours if this is defeated, Councillor Grant. Discussion on that. Okay, I'll call a question then. All those in favor of deferral for 1 year? And opposed? That is defeated. Okay, Councillor Grant.
Thank you. So I guess the motion would be to defer this until a May 1st start date as opposed to a March 1st start date.
Okay, is there a seconder for that? Councillor Burgess, discussion? Councillor Schwint.
I'm a little bit of two minds on this one because there's no way the planner is going to start until May 1st anyway. So what this is going to do is make our rate look cheaper, but it's just deferring the pay until next year. And I believe I heard Mr. Petherick say that our operating reserve is probably one of his top 3 concerns. Reserves. So we're taking money out of that reserve by doing this, but puts money in our residents' pockets for a year. I'm torn on this, but I'm still back on that building official. I would love to have part of the motion be that council is informed before that 4th building official is hired. I think that's something we should be part of that decision-making process this year.
Okay. What was I going to ask? I was going to ask Mr. Petherick, can you put a dollar amount on an average assessment for this last the 2-month deferral? Am I taxing you a little bit? Oh.
Sorry, thank you, Madam Mayor. You're looking for an impact on the average assessment for the 2-month deferral of the senior planner position?
Yeah.
I will hazard probably less than 5 cents.
Okay. Just to put it in perspective,
yeah,
what we're talking
Sorry,
about.
yeah, through Madam Mayor, considering that we're talking about an 18,000, like just shy of like 18,500, like you spread that across our whole entire, it's going to be very minimal.
Yeah. I just wanted to put it into a perspective of some kind. Okay, we have a motion on the floor for a 2-month deferral for the senior planner position. I see no further hands, so I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is defeated. Okay. Anything else that you'd like to talk about regarding the budget? Councillor Schwint.
Did Mr. Benjamin have some comments about the building official and the process, how that could work?
Yeah. I was going to say, yeah, we can ask to bring it back, but go ahead, David.
Yeah, so, certainly, certainly if council, if it was the will of council to support that the position comes back, to this council, this brand new council, that's a possibility. Certainly, I do understand what Director Freeze has noted. It was approved by the last council. That's why it was included in the budget. But I think what Councillor Schwint is noting, subject to the support and the will of the rest of council, if you wanted, the majority of council wanted to see it come back, I don't think that's a problem. I don't think that's a significant issue. So I don't have a concern with that, is what I'm trying to say. That's not an unreasonable ask, because you are a brand new council. A decision was made by the last council. And as I think Clerk Smith would agree, a decision made by a previous council does not mean that a new council can't decide something differently.
Do we need a motion for that or direction?
Mayor Chance, I would suggest a motion on this one. If someone would want to move, something along the lines of that, the staff report back to council prior to the hiring of the building official position.
Councillor Cato.
It's more a question through you, Mayor. Could we maybe move to place a hiring freeze on this position for 6 months, a year, however long we deem appropriate to really evaluate whether or not this is something that we want to proceed with? Not that I'm in favor of that. I understand where Councillor Swint's coming from. So is that something that we could make a recommendation on, say tonight or in the not too distant future?
I'm trying to think of, so we've defeated a motion to defer it a year. We've defeated a motion to defer it 2 months. So I'm not sure if
No, it's the building official.
This is the building inspector.
Sorry.
So,
Okay,
yeah.
it's been a long day.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just to try and assist, I guess through you to Councillor Cadeau and the rest of council, if council was supportive of the fact that we would come back prior to the hiring, with appropriate stats, one way or another to say we're delaying or we believe we should move ahead, is that not the equivalent of saying that we're putting a freeze on until such time, because it is until the fourth quarter. So I think it accomplishes the same goal, Councillor Cadeau. Again, if I'm reading you correctly. So, again, I don't believe it's an unreasonable request that this brand new council says the last council was supportive of hiring 2. We've already brought 1 on. The fourth one isn't, or sorry, the second one isn't scheduled until the fourth quarter. So if this council wants to support a motion to say staff will come back, before the hiring to show, why there's a case to be made or not to be made, that could be your motion, as I think Clerk Smith kind of articulated.
So go ahead.
I guess I'd like to make a motion to that effect, that before the chief building official moves ahead hiring another building inspector, that council has provided a report on the justification and needs for evaluation.
Okay, second, Councillor Cadeau, beat you. Any further discussion? Okay, I'm going to call a question. All those in favor? And that's carried. Okay. What else would you like to discuss about the budget? Councillor Schwint.
So I'm going to move on from this actual budget because we've talked a lot about it, but wondering about if for the 2024 budget, council could have a conversation or a committee of council about the format and I guess the process, so that going through this binder, Mr. Patrick put a pile of work into it. We've learned a fair bit going through the process this year, but is there a way that be more effective for council to understand it next year? That could that be a second quarter project for the township? And then leading into, I assume budget process will start at the beginning of third quarter, and maybe the council will have a conversation about, I guess, parameters for that budget at that point.
Mr. Petherick, can I get you to talk a little bit about process in a normal year? And what it might look like in light of the comments that you've heard through this session.
For sure. So through Madam Mayor, to answer the second part, yeah, we'll be bringing back a budget parameters report, probably I would say in the August timeframe, just because we don't have a meeting in July. So so that would be the easiest thing, I guess, to come across. The other one, looking at the format, yeah, I think if you wanted to have a discussion in council, or if you wanted to have a smaller group of council talk to staff and sort of bring some feedback, that would be very useful for our perspective. Because that is something that I think that we're always looking from a staff perspective, is to say, this is your council, this is your budget. How would you guys like us to give what information to you? So I'm totally receptive to whatever information you guys want to give us.
Councillor Bryant.
Thank you. Through you to Richard. One comment I got from the public was, is there any way to do like an executive summary? They were finding it very hard to navigate 350 pages of information and try and digest it and figure out what exactly it was telling them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So through Madam Mayor, 2 comments. The one executive summary, I would say really the budget report really kind of gives you an executive summary as it is. It doesn't maybe go into the depth of a department by department perspective, but I think what is on, or what was on the committee of the whole agenda, though it is still rather large document, it is much smaller because it actually is just the summaries of the departments as opposed to all of the details.
Thank you. Yeah, the public, I guess, was just saying they couldn't navigate it. They would like just to have a more simple breakdown, something that's easily understood by your average person.
Yep. Yeah. Through Madam Mayor, I think that's something we can work on.
Thank you.
David.
Yeah, so I just wanted to echo something Richard had indicated, that I know what I've seen over the years, because we've had quite a few new councils to work with, is that I think the budget process has gotten better with new fresh eyes coming on and good reflection. So I think Richard would agree. We've always had a debriefing process with council, especially the new councils, to say, as he noted, how best can it work for you? For example, one of the biggest things was years ago, we didn't have those notes in the section, which described, why is something over? Why is something under? What's the reason for the increase? Well, a simple enough change, but it made a big change in terms of actually streamlining and making the whole system more efficient. Because you can imagine without those notes, you're going to have 20 million questions. Well, why is this up? Why is this down? Why is this up? Some of those things were able to be eliminated by short, concise explanations, explanatory notes, to the main budget. So that's just one example. There's been numerous other examples over the last 16 years that have demonstrated with input from council how it can work better for you. And to Councillor Brian's point, absolutely, how it can work better for the public.
Does that satisfy your?
Yeah, that'll be helpful. A debriefing session, and we all want to understand this better. So I'm glad staff's can help us through this journey.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks. Next year will be a lot different when we've got time as a group to process everything from August until December. So I
notice the mayor didn't say easier.
No easier. Okay. I'm not seeing anyone else with anything on the budget. So the motion would be to approve the 2023 operating and capital budgets as amended in attachment 1. That would be except for the fire position. Go ahead.
Yeah, through Madam Mayor, we can kind of, with that fireman or the fire training officer been removed from the budget, you can change that number that was in recommendation 1 to $14,314,259.
Okay,
I'll provide that to Deputy Clerk Smith later.
thank you. Yes, I was going to ask you for that number, but I think the motion references attachment 1, and I'm assuming we have to change that to say with the removal of the fire training position. I don't have attachment 1 in front of me.
No, through you, Madam Mayor, the attachment 1 is actually just the high level summary of the whole entire operating capital budgets. That's what it is.
Okay, so okay.
So that's still good.
Just change the number.
Yep.
Okay, to $14,314,259.
Good
Can I have
job.
did I get it right? Yeah. Can I have a mover for that, please? Moved by Councillor Cadeau, seconded by Councillor Burgess, all the Councillor Schwint.
Sorry, let me just clarify for the public, because I've had a pile of emails on this, that the climate coordinator position is coming back. Staff report is not included in this year's budget.
The climate position is not included in this year's budget. It will come back as a staff report and we will deal with it at that time.
There's been confusion, so that helps the public.
Yes, yeah, I've had a number of emails too, yeah. Okay, any other discussion? Call the question, all those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Thank you. Okay, we have items for information and public notices. We have a municipal information form from Franny's Restaurant and Bakery. So a motion that that be received for information, moved by someone. Councillor Cadeau, seconded by Councillor Bryant. All those in favor? And that's carried. Staff reports and memos. I will call on Jeff Smith to talk to us about fully hybrid meetings.
Thank you. Sorry, thank you, Mayor Shantz. As requested by council, we brought this back to council's attention for the option to allow for fully hybrid meetings. If council is comfortable with this, what we've done is we've laid out essentially 5 recommendations here to allow for fully hybrid meetings, and I'll go through them one at a time. The first is that no one is required to attend in person except the roles of the chair, clerk, and meeting facilitator. These roles, of course, can be changed with the acting mayor, and staff are trained to back each other up. So there's not ever a requirement for anyone to attend in person. The public gallery is limited to 20 people. So we want to make sure that we have enough capacity that people have the spacing that's required. Number 3 is that anyone attending the meeting in person must register with the clerk's office. So this is something that we do right now for delegations and presenters, but our recommendation is to add it for anyone who's listening. This allows us, 1, to make sure the public gallery keeps to that limit. And of course, then we would give priority to people who are presenting or being delegations, those without access to Zoom or a phone. So anyone that couldn't join the meeting remotely, and then on a first come first served basis. That we provide essentially masks and hand sanitizer at no charge to anyone. And of course, those are fully optional, that no one should or anyone can wear them based on their own risk tolerance and needs. And that live streaming of council meetings and the option to join by Zoom will continue. Essentially plan to do that indefinitely. With that, council, I'd be happy to answer any questions and just looking for feedback if if there are any concerns with that plan.
Okay, I wonder if we could recommend a review of the gallery limit, and I'm not sure when that would be, but at such a point when it seems like we don't need to do that anymore. So if you could include a review at, I don't know, when public health, I'm not sure, removes the.
Mayor Shantz, through you, if it helps, we watch the risk level that Ontario's in weekly, actually. And what I can do is as that risk level goes down, I think we can monitor that 20-person limit. We can watch for that 6 foot of spacing recommendation to be removed, and then we can bring that back to council.
Thank you. Councillor Burgess and then Kiddo.
Through you, Mayor Shantz, to council, I just wanted to, like, do we have any interest in looking at the overhead cameras again instead of on Zoom? I know we discussed this before, but we might not need a second screen then if we're not using this computer for Zoom.
Through you, Mayor Shantz, we can do that. We have again rearranged the chambers, so it might make it a little bit easier for that. And we can sort of do that switching. So if council wants, I'm happy to do that.
Do we have the excuse me, the ability to zoom in on a speaker?
So we do have the ability to do that. What you'll see often is that we zoom in on the mayor's or the chair position and on the delegations. I guess the biggest issue is the clerk is generally fairly busy, watching for motions and providing procedural advice, and our meeting facilitator is fairly busy, taking down all the details of the minutes, as well as doing things like presentations and things like that for the presenters. The system that we have isn't an automated one, so it doesn't zoom to anyone's faces automatically. If you see the main overhead cameras changing, it's that usually myself is doing that. So really it's just a capacity issue. If council wants, we could have an IT person present for the entire meeting and see about having someone physically switching cameras, but that could be very labor intensive.
Alex, could you zoom out and show the whole council? So that's what it would look like if we didn't zoom in on a speaker, right? Councillor Schwint.
Could we see what that looks like with that as the only box on the screen?
Are you able to do that, Alex? Okay. There we go.
Makes a difference.
It does make a difference. Yeah.
Mayor Shantz, if it would help, what you would see, or anyone watching from home, is likely that large screen. If someone were to be delegating or presenting from at home, you'd see them switch to this, side by side. And then, when that delegate leaves, you'd go back to the sort of full screen. It is quite nice in terms of seeing what's going on in the council chambers. And I think it's still zoomed in enough that you could see people raising their hands to vote. So, you could see that from council.
Can you zoom in just a little bit, Alex? No, just a little closer. So you just go in little bits there. So if we were to move the desks, say if we were to move the desks in closer, could you zoom in more? Maybe not. Yeah. No, that loses people. Okay. Anyway, you get the idea.
So if you move desks in closer, you could zoom in more, right?
You could. We'd need to
just.
We wouldn't want to put someone across the end though, because you're looking at the back of them. So we need to have the space this way.
Mayor Shantz, if you want, I can play with the setup again. You can see we've squished you in a little tighter since the last time we discussed this. We can do that again. We can play with some of the camera angles and see if we can really get it. But it was something that we looked at originally to see if we could get council just in that one big view. It would mean that there's less playing with your laptops and things like that. I guess the only piece I would say is, if there are any, or if there is anyone from council at home that would be keeping their video on, like we have one councillor at home tonight, that would again decrease that picture size down to the two side by side. And then if you had a third, a presenter or a staff member or something like that joining, you'd start to see about 3 or 4 squares.
Can we leave that with you?
Yeah, I can play with that and I
Okay.
can see if I can find an angle that works.
Okay, great. Councillor Bryant.
Just a question to you. How does the region handle this? Because I know they show the whole scope, and I think you do individuals as well.
They zoom in on individual speakers, so you can see the whole group as we've got here, and then zoom in as each person speaks. They have someone there zooming in. So which I think you said we could do, it would mean another staff person here for our meetings.
Yeah, I know the city of Kitchener just does the big Zoom from what I've seen.
Okay, we'll leave that with our clerks, Smith. Okay. Anything else on the hybrid? Did you need a motion or anything on that? I don't think so.
There wasn't a motion proposed, Mayor Shantz, but I think I've heard direction from council tonight. I've seen some nods around the table that council's supportive of moving forward with fully hybrid meetings. We can do that for March. Sorry, I was going to say March 1st, the first meeting in March. And what we'll do as staff is you may just see that take a few months maybe to filter out through all your boards and committees, because that may take a little longer, just training some additional staff on the technology. But council in March, as I said in the memo, and then there'll be a little longer to get that filtered down to boards and committees.
Okay, thank you. The next report is a zone change application, and I'll call on Mr. Vink.
Good evening, council. This is the zone change application for James K. Bauman, 6918 Middlebrook Road. We had the public meeting for this application back in January. The applicant owns the 33.8 hectare parcel. It's designated countryside, prime agricultural and environmental protection natural hazards in the township's official plan. The applicant is proposing to amend the agricultural zoning with site-specific agricultural zoning to permit the repair of agricultural equipment and the fabrication and painting of farm equipment within an area of 1.2 hectares on the property. So just going through the comments briefly in terms of the provincial policy statement, the regional official plan, the township official plan, there's various comments in each of them that they have to meet for a test. There's a lot of similarities in those tests, that they're farm related, that they need to be in proximity to an agricultural uses, maintains the rural character, demonstrating that there's minimal cumulative impacts, etc. So all of these staff have reviewed and are satisfied that those tests can be met. One of the key items to look at, for example, though, in this application is the lands are within the natural heritage system, and the whole front part of this property is in the natural heritage system is identified, but the natural heritage features, the actual key features, are along the southern edge of the property. No development is proposed within the key features, and they're going to maintain a 30-meter separation. The provincial place to grow, which references the natural heritage system, allows these types of uses within the natural heritage system, so long as they maintain that 30-meter buffer from the actual feature. So in this case, there's no concerns. They're going to be able to maintain that separation. One of the other key elements is just the need and the nature of the kind of proposed use. In this case, the main function of the site is a repair operation where they do maintaining the large farm manure spreaders and painting of those parts. And that is the key element in the main part, and which is what is permitted in the policies as an agricultural related type use. The actual fabrication and sale of equipment, which is a more minor portion of the business, that is a bit of a questionable area when you go into the policies, because the construction and maintenance, the construction of such equipment doesn't need to be in agricultural areas, generally speaking. So these are generally would be pushed more of a settlement. However, it is a minor component of the use and is similar to what we would consider as a non-farm diversified use. So therefore, staff has no concern so long as it being a minor portion of the operation. In terms of compatibility, just with the neighboring properties, it is a very rural area there on Middlebrook Road. The nearest residence is about 200 meters away. There is no significant concerns with compatibility with this use. The applicant will be needing to get some review from the ministry for noise and the paint booth at the future points when they install those properly, but everything can be addressed from a compatibilities perspective. Generally speaking, therefore, staff is satisfied that the provincial policy statements, a place to grow, the regional official plan, and township official plan policies can be met to allow this use to proceed. In terms of the site-specific zoning, just to implement all that, the site-specific will allow the use as the maintenance and the repair of farm equipment and the painting of farm equipment as the main use. It will allow the sales and construction of new farm equipment as kind of a secondary use as to the main use. Also, the applicant did ask for a height increase in the buildings because they're such tall manure tanks, or these manure spreaders are very tall and very large pieces of equipment. They do need some extra height. So we're giving them that extra height in the proposed site-specific zoning. We are going to limit where the outdoor storage can take place, so it is further behind, so not seen from the road, to increase that compatibility perspective so that doesn't look very industrial from the roadway. In terms of the outdoor display of the farm equipment, there will be some near the front and be a limited area in the front portion of the property for people to see that what's for sale. The applicant also proposed a parking reduction. Based on the size of the operation, there are 41 spaces required. They're proposing 19. This may seem like a dramatic reduction and normally would be, but what we've been seeing with a lot of these businesses in the rural areas is the staffing is much less than a typical industrial use. And a lot of their staff in these rural areas are actually biking or taking other means of transit to work rather than vehicles if they do come. So we're seeing a significant ability here to reduce the parking in these cases without any major concerns. So staff have no objection in this case to seeing the reduction to 19 parking spaces for the proposed use. And as noted, we are going to maintain that 30-meter separation to the natural heritage feature. And a lot of these elements will be actually implemented in the site plan also. That will be coming later on to staff to deal with as they move forward. So a lot of these elements will be implemented and maintained finally in the final site plan process. Just to reflect on the comments received, the region did comment along the lines of what's permitted and should be allowed within the rural areas in terms of agriculture-related uses. Conservation Authority noted they didn't have any objections, and a number of minor comments just from other agencies more related to site plan or collection of development charges. Staff recommend the proposed bylaw as attached be approved so the applicant can move forward to complete the development on the site. If there's any questions, staff can answer them. The applicant and his consultant are also available tonight if need be.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions? Councillor Bryant.
Thank you. Through you to Mr. Bank. You mentioned that most people would be finding alternate means of transportation to get to work. Are we talking the Mennonite group bringing horses and buggies, for example?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Bryant. In some cases, yes, I'm seeing that. They use horses and buggies, and a lot of cases it's cycling. They are cycling in the rural areas to and from because they're nearby neighbors working on the properties and in these businesses. So they are actually cycling to their some of these facilities, as well as some people taking horse and buggy.
Okay, then just as a quick follow-up, if they are taking horse and buggy, are they providing a barn for those horses through the day if it's the winter months or whatever?
Generally speaking, yes. Through you to Councillor Bryant, yes. Generally, they do maintain some space for them to put the horse and the buggy out of the way. So it's often inside the barn that's existing if there is, but usually it's only like 1 or 2 spaces that we're talking about. It's kind of a bit of a mix that we see taking place in terms of what parking they're using, from a few bicyclists, maybe the 1 or 2 horses and buggies, and the rest maybe some cars, and still maintaining a significant amount of parking.
Thank you. I just wanted to ensure the horses were getting looked after if that was the case.
Okay, anyone else? Someone want to move the motion? Councillor Bryant, seconded by Councillor Schwint. Any further discussion? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Is there any other business? Okay, I'm not seeing any. I did make a couple of notes this week on some of the things that we're doing at the region or at the regional level. So David and I have been meeting with the region regarding a number of traffic and road related issues. Specifically, David, and he said this before, that he meets regularly with Inspector Lewis from the Waterloo Region Police to discuss concerns that we have, particularly on our roadways, but other concerns as well. each of us together and separately have been meeting with Commissioner Getke and Rose about the bypass, and also with CAO Bruce Lochner and Chair Karen Redmond, talking about the bypass, talking about Arthur Street, talking about many of our transportation issues. They are working on an EA for Arthur Street, which we expect to be finished early next year. And Nathan, Councillor Cadeau and Councillor Burgess and I have met with the region on that, working out some of the details in the reconstruction. And the two pieces, the bypass and Arthur Street, are they are linked together in ways. We need to know where we're going with the bypass before we know what kind of traffic we're going to maintain on Arthur Street, and so that they are linked together. I met separately again with Commissioner Rose to talk about some possible routes for a temporary truck bypass if we were to work on Arthur Street and close it. And so they're looking at some other options and trying to find ways that we can get to the Arthur Street reconstruction sooner than later. I think right now it's listed 2027, Jared, is that right? Do you, or maybe you don't know that answer, but I think it's 2027 in the master plan.
Yeah, through Mayor Shantz, I believe that you're correct, in 27, 28 was the timelines that we had heard.
Yeah, when I met with Commissioner Rose, I said that's not good enough. So they're looking at ways that they can perhaps move that up. So we keep pushing. The other thing that Regional Council is looking at is accelerating or is the automatic speed enforcement. So the cameras right now, legislation says we can only put them in school zones and community safety zones. So what Regional Council has passed a motion asking for information regarding a system that could be used to issue tickets, and what requirements we would need to set up such a system. Right now, there's an outside contractor who is doing that, and without getting into the weeds on it, they handle a lot of different municipalities, and there's limitations to what they can do. So we've asked staff to look into some options. Also to accelerate the program so that we could have the 32 regional sites in 2023. The previous recommendation was that was spread out, I believe, over 3 years. So we've asked them to come back and show us what it would look like in 2023. What else? Kayla, no, well, do you want me to finish this and then I'll take
I just, sorry, through you, Mayor Shantz, I just had a question about what constitutes as a community safety zone. I'm just trying to.
Yeah,
like,
we had that question too.
Okay, because I was just thinking, like, would a park qualify as a community safety zone? Like I'm just thinking of Maryhill, for example. Without the school, would the area by the park constitute or count as a community safety zone?
Yeah. That's a good question. I don't know the exact answer to that. I know that at Regional Council, we asked if we could make our towns community safety zones, or the regional roads going through our towns, and they're pretty prescriptive, but we are waiting. And one of our questions was to come back with a better definition of what that looks like, and how we can use community safety zones more fulsome, in a more fulsome way. Yeah. Sorry, just looking at where I am here. So also to have a plan to expand to all school zones, not just the 32 that we've identified. across the region, and also to add cameras and to increase the capacity to process tickets. So these are all things that are supposed to come back to regional council. Also, that staff be directed to report back by the second quarter of 2023 with a plan for the creation, costing, and funding of a Region of Waterloo processing center. So we would process our own tickets, and information on potential third-party providers. So a comparison, that staff undertake workshops with the township staff in March and April 2023 to identify specific traffic calming problem statements and implementation of possible solutions, including road redesign, beginning in the summer of 2023. So that would apply for all the townships. They would meet with us and look at us specifically and what we might need. And last thing, that staff be directed to investigate the expansion of the automated speed enforcement program to include community safety zones, and also consider expanding that definition if possible. Councillor Cadeau.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess it's not through you if I'm directing it at you, is it?
Through me to me. Yes.
Yeah, fantastic initiative, something that I definitely support. I'm just wondering if you can speak to the ownership of this program. From my understanding, this is a regional level program. Any fines that happen within the region of, or the municipality of Woolwich, would then go back to the region, right? The monies wouldn't be retained in.
So yeah, this would be specific to regional roads. And I think part of the working with townships would be some discussion on how that might play out in other areas of the townships. Right now, even the schools are the schools on regional roads. So it is very much right now regional centric. I don't know if, do you anything? Yeah, Jared, do you have anything you want to, that you could add to that?
Through Mayor Shantz, I don't believe so. I just think on the initiative was certainly done through the region. Just they had resourcing to do that. They actually did have to resource up to be able to support the automated speed enforcement. And the school zones, I think the only thing I would offer is the school zones outside of the safety zones. It was difficult because every municipality had looked at community safety zones different. So I think that's good news to hear that there's going to be some definition assigned to the community safety zone. And that was really a concern at the time of implementation of the ASE and why it was selected that school zones only, because that's very defined. There was no discrepancy from municipality to municipality as far as what a school zone was. So it is nice to hear that the safety zone is being reviewed, because that was something that we were challenged with as municipal partners in that process.
Thanks, Councillor Cadeau.
Thanks. This is follow-up, and I know that it's because of the costs, it's probably impractical to suggest it, but we're talking about all of these traffic calming measures, you know, potentially putting in speed bumps, putting up those medians down Barn Swallow and you know, the things like that. Is this something that we as a township could be looking to implement on our own and then not be kind of stuck with only the school zones or only this, you know, wishy-washy community safety zone? You know, if we wanted something targeted because there's a speeding problem, for instance, you know, couldn't we just implement our own?
Sure.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Shantz, to Councillor Cadeau. I think this is a broader discussion. It is POA, which is the Provincial Offences Office that handles all the ticketing and that. So it is very administrative heavy, and it's hence why it was decided at the time that it would be led by the region, and then any costs certainly would be borne by them, and then of course that they would realize any ticketing revenues as well. So I think it was challenging even from some of the larger centers. It's not to say that it can't happen going forward, but I think there's some steps along the way. And I think we need to better understand what implementation pieces need to be there and what that would look like to the Township of Woolwich. So I know that Kitchener was interested in something like that as well. Obviously, they're a much larger center than us. And I do know that the region did have to to ramp up administrative staff on their end just to start the process through ASE. So I think it's more a bit of stay tuned. I think it was good news from Mayor Shantz to hear that the staff are looking at that, and I think we just need to wait and find out what that information is.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, are there any, thanks, Jared. Are there any council reports or updates? Okay. Seeing none, we did ask staff to come back with some updates on the outstanding activity list. So I will call on David to start on monitoring of transit issues. Mr. Brenneman.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Shantz, to council. So with this first one, I'll start off by saying the last council, for a variety of reasons, wanted to monitor anything to do with transit. And so it certainly started with keeping up to date with respect to Route 21, which I will call a much more conventional route within the regional system. As well, though, what evolved over the course of council's term was the fact that the Kiwanis transit system evolved into helping and supporting a community bus, a circular system feeding into the main system. And then towards the end of the last term, the region also decided, with support from Metrolinx funding, to do a on-demand, flex on-demand type service pilot project with respect to Breslau. So I know at various times throughout council's terms, we've had updates from regional transportation planning staff with respect to how the various routes are doing. I think, for example, even staff have provided council with information about a month or so ago or more with respect to how the Breslau Flex on-demand pilot went, that sort of thing. But I think this is a great opportunity to speak to this council about the fact that upon reflection, where are we at with all three of these areas? Well, the Elmira St. Jacobs bus route, Route 21, really is at a stage where a number of years ago, the region actually enhanced the service levels. And it's very much like a conventional system now that you would find in the cities. Short of providing ongoing data about the use of that Route 21, that might be something why you want to keep it into track. I would also note that the whole notion of a future community bus is still, what that looks like for the future. I think we got a bit of a reprieve. The region had gone out about a year ago for an RFP to the marketplace. We had some concerns about that. The mayor and I met with the regional chair and the regional CAO. Fast forward, and the mayor was able to successfully secure yet another additional year of maintaining the existing community bus with Kiwanis Transit and not going to another private provider. That is a process, though, that I think will still be unfolding in the future. Maybe another reason why you want to keep it on here so that we keep it tracked and that we give you an update at the appropriate time. And it's my understanding the region right now, as part of the regional budget process, has the continuation of the Breslau pilot project into an on-demand system. And I guess that will be debated and discussed as part of their budget process. So, for right now, that's really where we stand on all three of those items. Route 21 is a conventional route. I think the best thing, as I said, I would say on that is, if you want to continue to track it, it would be about getting regular updates from the region in terms of how it's doing, even though they obviously have care and control for transit, right? That's their responsibility. And then, as I said, the two newer areas that probably will require a fair bit of monitoring and updates to council will be with respect to what the future of the Elmira community bus looks like, And as I said, the other one is very brand new, and that is the regional budget discussions around continuing with the Breslau pilot project. So that's really all I have in the way of an update right now. One of the things, if council wanted to see, we'd be happy to invite transportation planning staff in to speak to stats specifically about Route 21 and what they've seen as we move out of the pandemic, so to speak. So happy to try to also answer any questions that you might have, but that's all I have in the way of an update for this particular meeting.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any questions? No. Okay. Thanks. Investigate options for library at existing Breslau Community Center, and I'll call on Mr. Vanderhoff. Thomas.
Hi, Mayor Schultz, through you to council. So happy to provide a bit of an update for council on the, we'll call it the evolution of library services in Breslau, specifically at the Breslau Community Center. So for several years now, the region and the township have been exploring options for enhancing library services in Breslau. And recently, most recently, that looks like pop-up library services in the BC and the Empire Room. So staff meet regularly with regional staff as well too to collaborate on programming, make sure that we're not overlapping, that sort of thing, duplication of programs. So discussions kind of picked up following the pandemic and also as a result of recent tenant vacancy, as council is aware of, in the lower level of the Empire Room at the BCC. Both township and regional library staff are excited and supportive of looking at the opportunity to renovate this space at the community center as a wonderful opportunity to provide enhanced library services for the community as a next step from pop-up. So this would be a dedicated library space within the community center. So next steps at the moment, township staff are working with the region to put together a concept design and then do some community outreach and public consultation. Plans for that are to occur in March, April. Following that piece, we would do some analysis of that information, look at planning with regards to operations in May. Then we would look to report to council as well as the regional library board for approval in June, July. And then finally, renovations of the space, likely upgrades to the flooring, painting, that sort of thing, some AODA upgrades to the building as well. And then a planned grand opening in the fall of 2023. So the region of Waterloo currently has capital funds earmarked in their budget to renovate the space to provide a warm and inviting area. And the region also has operating dollars identified in their 2023 budget for, I believe, half the year. However, from the timeline that I provided, it likely not be half the year, likely more closer to a quarter of the year. And then the last piece I can share on this is that the townships and the region are working on updating our existing agreement to kind of bring it to 2023 with regards to all the variety of library offerings that are out there, whether it's standalone or pop-up or a dedicated library facility. And as a part of those discussions, directors from the 4 townships are recommending to the region that we look at that the region look at a library services master plan in the near future to provide some guidance to us and to the others with regards to our existing facilities, as well as the need for new facilities, where and when. Council would have seen through our capital budget, our 5-year forecast, we do not have anything in the way of library specific capital projects. And this plan would hopefully provide some direction and drive some of those larger projects moving forward. And with that, happy to try and answer any questions council may have, and if not, get back to you once I have a chance to chat directly with staff that are working with the region.
Are there any questions? Kind of snuck up on me. Are there any questions? No. Okay. I know that the regional budget has included for equipment and books and so on for the library in Breslau. So exciting to see that moving ahead. I also know that some of the folks in Breslau had asked me a while ago about you know, a standalone site, and you know, that's certainly something we can talk about, but this is a space that we have now that we can at least provide something. So so we'll work with that and see how nice we can make it, and then we'll get together with the community and see if they want to do more, or maybe they'll be happy with it. We'll see. Thanks.
Thanks.
Taxation of old order Mennonite churches, Ms. Freeze. Welcome back, Deanne.
Thanks. So this was an item that was deferred to the second phase of the ROP review. So now that we have the first phase of the ROP review done, and we've had some information from the provincial government delegating down planning responsibilities to the local municipality, so that would be us, we're going to be including it. We already have included it through our official plan. We will be reviewing our official plan and make sure that it's included through our official plan review for implementation. We expect that will be in place early 2024. So it's moving ahead now with us based on the new provincial direction.
Does council understand the issue that we were having? Yeah, I wondered, Deanne, if you can just elaborate a little bit. This is a new council.
Yeah, sorry, I'll back up a minute. So there was an issue with schools that are on agricultural properties and limitations on being able to sever those properties to separate the school from the agricultural operation. So this is due to a lot of historic Mennonite properties where they had offered to have a schoolhouse on the property. The result is they're in a higher tax bracket because of the use of the institutional use of the school rather than the farm. So they're interested in severing off these properties so that they'd be taxed as an agricultural property rather than an institutional property.
Thanks. Are there any questions? No, I'm not seeing any. Thanks. Resolution to declare a climate emergency and implementation of a corporate carbon budget. Mr. Patrick, just the word you want to hear. More budget.
So thank you, Madam Mayor. So this was coming out of when municipalities were declaring a climate emergency, and as part of that was the implementation of a carbon budget. I think two things I would say is Tova Davidson said it very well, that a carbon budget is not the same as a financial budget, so don't think of it that way. However, as most things, there's always going to be a financial component to it. So that's why us as an area treasurers group, we have had discussions on it. It has been delayed because of the pandemic, but we started to resurrect some of these discussions late last year. And we're going to be kind of collaborating as a regional group. However, I think from at least from the financial side, we're going to be trying to get through all of our budgets as well as our year ends. And then we're going to kind of circle back and try to get some work done. I know the region has already been doing some work, and I think we're going to try to maybe leverage some of that and work together collaboratively.
Thanks. Questions? Councillor Schwint.
Following up on earlier conversations about the climate coordinator position, I guess I'm wondering in the meantime, when senior staff are working on new projects, new ideas, new developments, at what point is the climate and green initiatives, is that part of the planning process that's got to be reviewed along with planning and budget and infrastructure? Or how's senior management team handle that?
You want to do
that? So through you, Madam Mayor, sorry, can Councillor Schwint clarify his question?
Sure. So when there's a new project being proposed and developed in the township, is the climate component or green component part of the checklist of areas that are, I guess, thought of and kind of like a environmental assessment? Do we do a climate assessment when we're buying a fire truck or looking at a new road, that type of thing?
Yeah, so, okay, so I guess I would phrase it this way. Does senior management look at all possible opportunities to ensure that climate change improvements or enhancements are put into place, whether we're looking at perhaps a facilities project or the purchase of a vehicle, or maybe some overhaul in terms of simple lighting standards, whatever the case may be? Yeah, I would say the short answer is yes. And we've looked at that for quite some time through that lens. However, just as council, I think, has debated this year something like the EV charging stations, we also have to view it through a lens of, is there a business case, to be made? Because, for example, I think I nearly fell off my chair when the fire chief told me how much the city of Brampton spent on a brand new electric vehicle fire truck. It was in the millions and millions of dollars. So, certainly any sort of decisions with respect to climate change improvements have to be balanced off through the lens of what's the business case to be able to make as well. So I can assure you that we certainly do take those things into consideration, when we're looking at projects, and whether that be construction of facilities or what have you.
Thanks.
Okay. Mr. Vanderhoff, did you want to jump in here?
Yeah, I can just add a little bit to Mr. Brenneman's comments as well too. This will be the first year as well too that we have shared some of our more notable projects with WEAC for comments. So just a couple of weeks ago, notice went out to the managers throughout the township, and we shared some of those projects with them, looking for comment from them. Which is good because we don't have the expertise kind of in-house. Personally, I don't have the expertise, so it's nice to be able to share that with someone. So that's just another set of eyes on projects that can provide us some assistance. Just wanted to add that.
Thanks. Other questions? Okay. Thanks, Mr. Patrick. And since you were our last presenter, and I know we're heading to adjournment, but before we get to those final pieces, I just want to say thank you to you and your staff and all of the staff for again for all the work on the budget, and to council too for good discussion, good questions, and it's always a difficult time, and it's never a happy time to raise taxes, but I think we've done a good job of trying to hit a balance. So thank you to everyone in the room and those on the Zoom call for all your hard work. And we'll take a break for a couple of months, and then we'll call you back and start all over again. So there are no notices of motion, and I would like a motion that the following bylaws in the hands of the clerk be read a third time and finally passed, that they be numbered as bylaw number 13 to 20, and that they be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the corporate seal. Should it say first, second, and third time?
Yes.
Okay, we'll read them first, second, and third time. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Bryant, seconded by Councillor Burgess. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. And that brings us to the end of our agenda for today. So I would look for a motion to adjourn to meet again in regular session on March 21st, 2023, March 21st. Wow. We'll have committee in between there. Yeah. Don't go away. Yeah. Somebody want to adjourn or no? Councillor Cadeau, Councillor Burgess, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Yes, that was just for the council meeting. It's kind of confusing. And so I and council would like to thank everyone who participated or tuned into the meeting tonight on our YouTube live stream. And I'll remind council to stay connected until we receive confirmation that the live stream has stopped. And good night, everyone.